All right, everybody, ding, ding, ding. We are back at it again. We are back with Ringside Presents Corner Confession, and I am here with the illustrious Sex with Ashley. Now, for those of you who don't know her, she is a sex and relationship writer. She is a podcast host for the podcast Ho and Tell. She is a columnist for MadameNoire. And what was the other one?
I have my own blog called Gossip and Gasms.
Gossip and Gasms. And I recently made her acquaintance at this year's Sex Down South conference, hosted right here in hot Atlanta. And this, let me tell you, just doing some of the background on her, she is definitely an underground rock star. But, you know, we're going to bring her to the stage. We're going to bring her inside the ring, and we're going to get into it. So check this out, Ashley. Your work speaks for itself. I mean, you know, I follow you on IG. I've seen some of your work, and I've listened to your podcast a couple times. And you don't hold back when it comes to your opinions and your thoughts about dating and relationships, and you know, especially sex. So, before we dive in and we get into the actual meat of all this, what brought you to this genre, the topic of sex? Like, what about it appeals to you?
Well, I realized that, I got started because I wanted to do public health. Went to college I have a public health degree. I wanted to be a health educator originally. Got out of college, couldn't find a job, so I had to do something else. In the meantime, I started a blog. It wasn't Gossip and Gasm at the time, it was a whole new blog. I started, and I kind of realized in doing so that women my age at the time, I was like 30, 28, 30, 29, 30, we did not have the best education around sex in our bodies, because you know, sex ed back in the day when I was in high school and middle school back in 90 something sucked. So we did not get the best sex education, if any at all, actually. So around 30, I was on this whole sexual revolution of my own, and I wanted to kind of like just share things I was learning and finding out about, and kind of like include people on that journey. So that's kind of how I started my whole life as a blogger.
And for those who don't know, she is here. She is new. She's a new transplant to hot Atlanta.
Yes.
So welcome to Atlanta.
Yeah,
You know, glad to have you here. Your story sounds eerily close to mine. I have a background in public. My master's is in public health, and you know, I've been working at the government for God knows 12, 13 plus years doing public health, particularly health communications. So I'm like, okay, I'm right there with you. You know, it took me 4 years to get through grad school and make me realize, public health thing, I don't think that's my calling. I think my calling is something else. So I kind of dove into this genre. But to get into it, anybody who listens to your podcast and reads your writing, they should not be faint of heart. They should not be timid. They should not be people with, who are overly conservative, because you get into it. But some of the things that I've seen you write and you post on social media really resonate. And you have a lot of people that can really relate to the things you say. And what piqued my interest, you made a post one day on IG. And I'm going to let you, kind of further explain it. You put it out there about how a lot of men may want, more of maybe a closeted conservative woman that can't handle women who are, kind of out loud with their sexuality, kind of wild, and I'm wording it different, but I'm gonna let you go into it. But I really want to focus on that, because that really caught my attention. I started asking myself, like, could I deal with women like that? I'm like, it's one of those things where, as men, well, just in general, you hear people say, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. And it's something that I can't really see a lot of men being opposed to initially, but it's one of those things where you can wish for it and want for it, but can you really handle a woman who may have a higher libido than you, or may be more sexually expressive than you? But I want to give you an opportunity to kind of expound on that, because I really, really thought that was worth, newsworthy.
So, from my experience, I found that black men are pretty much conservative and church adjacent, even though the ones don't go to church, the ones who are no longer spiritual. For the most part, they're church adjacent and very conservative when it comes to women and their dating, right? They have the the complex of we want lady in the streets and the freak in the or lady in the streets,
Freak in the bed.
and the freak in the bed, right? That's pretty much how it is. And that's that mantra has been talking about with rappers and other things. That's what they want. They want somebody who looks a certain way or acts a certain way in public. But then,
Like we want the Michelle Obama in public,
yes.
but in the bedroom we want superhead.
Yeah, right. And then and you can have that. There are people who are like that. Like I think I look pretty normal in the streets. But like with with my profession, what I do, I talk about sex out loud. So I talk about, I go to parties, I go to events, I talk about different types of kinks, different type of things that I might not like be into. I might try it to write about it, or I might just do something to go to different places. It becomes, with me in particular, it becomes a thing of are you confident enough to have a woman who everybody knows does this type of work. I have friends in the sex ed lane, like they're sex educators, or they're like sex therapists, or they teach sex ed at a college, and that is still the sex ed lane they talk about sex as too, but it's more of a traditional role, like you're an educator or you're a teacher. With me, it's kind of like I write about it, I go explore. I do different things. It's easier to kind of tell your mom or your grandma, oh, this is Sheila. She's a professor at blah blah, and she teaches about sex or sexual education, or she worked at the health department. That's kind of easy to say. Then you have me. It's like, oh, this is Ashley. What she do? Oh, she's a sex blogger. She writes about sex, or she does all these different things. I think that is what a lot of men have their conflict about. Is like, how does this line up with where I am? Am I confident enough to be able to tell someone, yeah, that's my wife, or that's my girlfriend, or that's whoever, and this is what she does. And then people automatically assume too, because you talk about sex, that you are like this, like you are a superhead. And that is not synonymous to
I can relate.
not the same. So there's that too.
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah. So men think, she talk about sex, like, oh, are you gonna be sexing everybody, or like, how does that look?
Are we fucking on the first date? Or?
Yeah, like,
yeah,
are people gonna think my girl a hoe? Like, stuff like that matters. I had a conversation with somebody one day. I was like, I think men will be happier in their relationships if they actually get with people they like. So, for example, and not get with people who they think their friends or the people around them gonna like. Like, for example, if you like the girl who's the stripper at the club, like you like her, y'all vibe, right? Y'all get along great. You have a good time. She has qualities that you like, but a lot of men are not gonna marry her because of the stigma.
Like what my mama gonna think.
Yeah.
What my church gonna think.
Right.
If I tell them, no, I definitely, as a man, I can certainly understand. I can definitely relate and deal with that, because at the end of the day, you're right. You can meet a woman, you can be hella attracted to her, and you guys could be, cool as hell, have some of the same interests and really vibe. The sex can be great. However, what are my friends?
Yes.
What are my church members? What are my family gonna think if I tell them, hey, she's a porn star,
Yes.
she's a stripper,
or she's whatever
idea. Yeah, she doesn't fit that mold that I have been dreaming about, or just anticipating taking to my village. Because my parents or my friends, they're expecting me to bring home a teacher, or a professional woman,
Yes.
or a homemaker, not
Correct.
someone that works at Magic City, or someone
Correct.
Who is a burlesque dancer, or whatever the case may be. But you're right. It's like we don't, and I'm guilty of that. We don't do that because, how can we explain that? How can we go back to our village, to our parents and elders, and explain, this is who I want to marry, and this is who I want to have my child.
Yeah, date. I think men too would do better if they just date the person they like. Because as a sex advice columnist, sometimes I get questions from men and women. They're married to this person who does not do it for them sexually or in the bedroom, and like when you're dating someone, and then when you're married to someone, it's different, because when you're married to someone, that one person is supposed, if you're monogamous, most people are monogamous, so that one person has to has to satisfy all your sexual needs, right? The person that you're married to, if you're in a monogamous situation. So that means that, I'm only supposed to be sexual with you. So if I don't like having sex with you, then, I'm
trapped.
Right, I'm trapped. And then this one man particularly sticks out to me. He was talking about his wife and, how things that he was into and things that she was into. And he was like, well, how can I get her to be into those things? I'm like, sometimes you just can't. Sometimes people just how they are. Like if because he asked her about a certain situation, she was like, nah, she didn't want to do it. And I was like, well, you can't make force somebody. Either she's like interested or she's not. Then I asked him, I said, so why did you marry her? Like, has she always been this way, or was she like, this is something new? She's like, no, she's been this way the whole time. I'm like, well, why did you marry her then? Like, why did you marry her if you knew that you like A and she liked C? Like, why did you marry her? And she was like, well, we were dating in college and, a typical thing. Like, we were dating and,
It just made sense.
Yeah, it made sense.
We both from, she was in a sorority, I'm in a fraternity. Similar backgrounds, some professional goals, similar beliefs. Go to the same church, or we believe in the same God, whatever the case may be. So it just kind of fit. The image was picture perfect.
Yes.
And it's like, but at the end of the day, she's not truly what I want.
No.
But it fits. It fits in the frame.
And then now you're emailing me, and then I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you, because I can't make someone like you. Ultimately, people have to want to do things on their own. Like I tell people all the time, like women, so my husband or boyfriend wants me to do a threesome, blah blah. And I'm like, well, do you like to eat pussy? Are you interested in having sex with a woman? Do you want to touch a breast? Do you want someone touching you that's a woman? Do you want somebody are you interested in any capacity of having sex with a woman? Being
naked and sexual with another woman.
Now the answer to that question is no, then you only have a threesome. And also you shouldn't have a threesome because your mate wants you to have one either. You should have one because you want to have one, or you're at least curious into what it is about it. You should never do a thing because somebody else wants you to do it.
But I mean, I've heard women, more than a couple of women say they had threesomes only at the request of their man. Like I've heard women say that, hey, they weren't into it, they're not in women, but it was something they felt they had to do to keep their man satisfied and happy. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder, could that experience have been that great if you really weren't into it?
Right. No, it's not. Like I think that you have to, in a relationship, you have to compromise and meet in the middle. But meet in the middle does not necessarily mean I have to have a threesome. Meet in the middle might be, okay, so you want to do something, maybe we go to a swinger club, and maybe, you venture out there or something. But it does not necessarily mean you have to have a threesome with somebody to keep them. That does not mean that. You should do a threesome because you're interested in doing a threesome.
Right.
Not because you feel forced to keep your relationship together.
Really quickly for the viewers out there, just want to make sure, encourage everybody to like and subscribe to the Ringside Corner Confessions YouTube video. Give this video a like, leave some comments down in the comment section, but most important, make sure you subscribe. So, based on your views, because your views to me seem right on. Because even before I started following you and got to know who you were, I agree and have similar thought pattern. However, I don't know, and you're new to Atlanta, I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but one of the things that, and based on where you're from, you're down south as well. You're in Atlanta, this is the Bible Belt. There is a church on every corner, but in addition to every corner there's a church, it's also a strip club. So how do you, I'm not sure if you've encountered this yet, or, how would you kind of maneuver around being in a city like Atlanta, even though Atlanta is known for strip clubs, Freaknik, and, there are a lot of, great events here, but it's very conservative. It's still a red state. People, how do you kind of maneuver around that when you're dealing with people who may tell you, look, that's way too taboo, or no, that'll never work in a marriage, or, if God is not the center of your marriage, it won't work, or, how do you deal with the tone living, in the South and dealing with some of the religious kind of, overtones, but still being open and out with sexuality and sexual expression?
Because I grew up in the South, so I'm used to it. I also grew up in church, so I tell people I'm probably the churchiest non-church girl you're probably going to meet.
Okay.
Like, I know church. I grew up in it. So I guess it's just easy to me to be able to, like, I told the story a while ago. I used to be a part of like a purity group back when in my 20s. And it's Pinky Promise was a pretty popular purity group back in
That was a whole
2000.
lot of alliteration.
Pinky Promise, yeah, Pinky Promise. A purity group back in about 2010, I think it was. Was anyway. So I used to be like one of the group leaders for that movement. So I tell people, like, I've gone from one extreme to the other. So I know how to talk to people who have the same type of thinking like that I grew up with, because I was in that culture. I just realized that one, you have to do what works for you. The problem that I think a lot of people find themselves in relationships, in marriages, is we're trying to put our relationship into this, what we think society tells us it has to be. Right? I don't feel like there's one way to do any type of relationship or partnership. Two, I feel like women are not taught we're not taught that sex is important. We're just not. Outside church, people in church, we're just not. For men, they're talked about, make sure you get a girl you like to have sex with, but we're not taught that. Ultimately, we're talking about the things we want in a partner: financial, good job, good father, but sex is never on that list. So like, I tell people that if you like sex, everybody doesn't like sex. It's not a really high priority for them. But if it's above a 5 for you, then you need to make sure that you are having that you prioritize that in your partnerships. Like, I don't subscribe to the thing of like waiting until you get married to have sex. I do not subscribe to that.
I don't either.
I don't. Like, I think in life, every type of big purchase or every type of big decision we make in life, we go test it out. Before we go to college, we go do a college tour. Before we go buy a car, we test drive. Before we go to buy a house, we walk through it.
Gotta walk through. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You get an inspection. You just don't go buy a house. Okay, like, I'm gonna give you down payment for $20,000. I'm gonna buy a house sight unseen. Like, no one does that. No one does that with anything that we make, any major life decisions.
Any type of commitment or investment. Yes, look, I need to know what I'm getting myself into.
We see it first,
right.
Touch the walls, touch it, feel it, make sure it feels like, okay, this is going to be good.
And especially if you plan on, if the intent goal is to be with this person, decades and, whatnot, it's like, okay, if I'm going to be with you for, X amount of years or decades, or family, whatnot, I need to know what I'm getting myself into, both inside and outside of the bedroom.
Right. So like with every other thing in our life, we are expected to try it out, see that's what we want to do first. But when it comes to, if you're under the Christian religion, if it comes to sex and marriage, you're supposed to go into it blindly. You're not supposed to see if it's what you like or nothing. And like, I don't subscribe to that. That might work per se if both people are virgins, but even when you're virgins, people still have things they like. Like, I still like it, even if you're both virgins. I mean, yes, you don't know what sex is, so you have to compare it to. But like, there's different people have different erotic blueprints. Like, they respond to different things. They like different things. Maybe you're with somebody who's kinky. Maybe you're with somebody who's sensual. Maybe you're with somebody who is a physical person. Like, you need to know that. You need to see if y'all are compatible and if y'all link up. I think so. Even with virginities, you still need to know if you like the same things. So just going something blind and just like,
just taking a leap of faith.
Yeah, I think that's the craziest thing ever, and I don't subscribe to that.
You know what? You mentioned church and Christianity a couple times, and I really want to, drop this bombshell on you. I want to get your take on it because you grew up in the church, and I really want to get your perspective on this because we're going to have a lot of people going to view this video. It's going to be posted on social media, and a lot of people, like you, grew up in church. As a guy growing up, we are constantly, men are constantly told, some of the biggest freaks are in church, particularly, PKs, preachers' kids. You hear that constantly. I mean, going to college, I met, guys from East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, and they all hear the same thing. Like, yeah, for some reason, the church girls be the biggest freaks. Do you think there is a link, or is it, that's just something popular to say? Is there a link? I mean, is there? Some people say, okay, if you're a young lady and your father is the pastor, or you grew up in a very restrictive kind of religious setting, that you're forced to suppress certain desires, certain wants, certain, whatever you want to call it. And then when you get the opportunity in a relationship or, dating or marriage, that's when a lot of them kind of let it explode or let it out. I'm not sure. It's just my hypothesis, just a theory. What do you think? Because you grew up in the church, and just like you admitted, you went from one extreme to the other. What do you see as a link between, where do you think that expression comes from? Is there a link between being heavily, heavily involved in church, or being the daughter of a pastor, and also being very freaky or sexually expressive?
I think what happens is people begin to rebel. If you're like very and grew up in a very strict religious home, you get to the point where because for example, for me, when I got to college, I didn't go to church for probably junior year. I was like, I'm done with church. Like, I've been churched to death. I don't want nothing. I don't want to read no Bible. I don't know nothing. I'm over. I'm like, okay, I can be myself. I can try different things, because all you hear is this, right? You don't really get to explore or try anything else, really. So I think part of it is kind of like rebelling. Mm-hmm. They kind of rebel. They're rebelling, trying to figure out their own selves and going against what they've been told they cannot do. That's why I think a lot of it is rebellion.
No, that's a good point. I mean, I think a lot of people, especially college, I think college gave people that clean slate, being away from your parents, forming, if you want to continue the identity you had in high school, or if you want to start over and create a new identity. And for some people, that identity is rooted in rebellion or going against the grain, and that includes sexually. Mm-hmm. So, what would be your advice to, you're going to have men, and you mean women and men, who may watch this and agree with you, and they may be very sexual, but they may feel like, but if I express myself too much, will that dissuade men or women from wanting to be with me? For the people out there that may want to have that white picket fence, fantasy of the home and the 2.5 kids and the dog and the, this certain life, but they realize, look, me being me may turn certain people off, to wanting to be with me. What would you say to that man or woman looking at this and is right there with you, like, look, I love to be sexually expressive. I love to strip. I love going to strip clubs. I love swinging. I love swinger parties. I love threesomes. This is who I am. That's, naturally, what makes me me. But at the end of the day, I want to be a good wife, or I want to be a good husband. And my fear is this may turn people off or lower my chances. So what advice would you give that person?
One, there's a lid for every pot. Like, I believe that, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think you should try to, especially with women. Women try to curtail their behaviors, their, how they appear, how they come off to for the approval of men. Mm-hmm. I don't live by men's approval. I'm not sitting here like, oh, let me do this so a man will like me. Like, mm-hmm. that's not how I live. I used to, but I'm not out here living my life based on some man's approval that I don't even know. Right. So I care slightly, if we're in relationship, and then if you're a sibling or a relative of mine, I might care a little bit, but like for some people that I don't know, I just don't care. You have to, life is short. And you have to live your life. I don't subscribe to doing things to get mates. Mm-hmm. Like I said, there's a live every pot. There's someone that's going to like you with you being yourself. What you don't want to do though is to suppress who you are and then get into a relationship and you're not being authentic. And then I've seen that too. And then years later, like, I can't do this no more. And the man's like, well, who is this person? This is the person you married, but I was trying to, be what you wanted me to be, but that now I'm not happy and I'm miserable, and now you're married to somebody you don't even recognize. Mm-hmm. But if you start off being yourself, then you will attract people who are like you and people who are attracted to who you are. and you don't have to do the whole metamorphosis thing because you're already attracted to someone who likes the real you. So.
No, I agree. That's good advice. So I mean, and then like I said, just even some of the things that I've seen on your IG and the things you talked about, I'm like, okay, a lot of people can relate to that because you are. I mean, that's the common thing. I mean, you have a lot of people out here who are suppressing themselves in order to be chosen or to be liked. Correct. Or to fit in a certain frame.
Correct.
Not realizing that in the long run you're doing yourself and your partner a great disservice. Because that's not you. You may like sex a certain kind of way, or you may like to be more sexually expressive. You may want to talk and be more vocal about it, but the person you're with, that's not what they're looking for, or it may not jive well with the where you are, but from what you've encountered dating, or either yourself, your own personal stories, or women that you've spoken to. Are there a lot of men who are insecure about this? Is it really that prevalent? Men who just flat out can't deal with the woman who is that sexually, explosive, both inside and outside the bedroom.
I according to my male friends, they were like, people are probably intimidated by you. I'm like, why? Like people, I guess this is what I'm hearing from men. They say that men feel like either that maybe I won't like their performance sexually, or I'm too sexually advanced for them, or I'll be into things that they don't like. And I've had the last two I've experienced those. I'm into things that some people don't like, and that's fine. Totally fine, cool. Either you're willing to try it or you're not. Fine, we don't, and then I think people feel like I've had situations where people are just into regular, traditional sex, right?
That missionary meat and potatoes type.
Yeah, they don't want to include any type of like toys or anything. Just regular stuff, and that's fine. That's not me though. So like I think once if like I said, just be true to yourself. I don't try to force people to do anything they don't want to do. I ask, questions, and if it doesn't align, just don't align. But I know that there's also people out there who are also into what I'm into because I met those people too. I think some men are intimidated because they don't really know. Maybe they're not confident with their own sexual expression, or they're not confident enough in their sexuality. So it might be a little intimidating. But that's probably why. Because they think I don't know what they think. I don't think I want to run circles. I don't know what they think because I feel like I'm regular, so I don't know.
Well, last question, and let's go out with a bang.
Okay.
Let's knock this one out of the park. It's been a great interview, and I know a lot of people are going to learn from this, and hope it helps them. But one last question. So you mentioned men being intimidated. Manhood is at a premium. As men, we're always. I tell people all the time, as men, we wake up every day and have to audition for our manhood. Every day we get out of bed. There's always going to be a pissing contest with men. Make sure you're the most manly, most masculine, but we're quick to identify things, even sexually, that we feel take away your masculinity or your heterosexuality, or if you're into this, then that says something about you, your sexuality. So how would you advise a man who may be with a woman who is sexually out there, that he may want to do certain things sexually, but he's afraid of, if I do this, does this make me gay? Or what does it say about my manhood if I'm really into this with a woman, but I may feel some type of way? Because that's something that a lot of men talk about. It's like, well, what happens if you get in that bedroom and a woman wants to, fondle wants to look under your hood,
right,
and play with certain things, and they're like, well, that makes, does that make me gay if I like it? What would you say to that man, those men out there who may be listening and viewing and may have a woman and may want that woman to, fondle certain areas, but they're afraid of how they may feel about themselves afterwards, or what it may say about their manhood and sexuality?
Well, first, no one has to know what you're doing in the bedroom no one's going to know unless you're broadcasting it. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, any type of sex with a woman, if you're a male, it's heterosexual sex, so it's not gay because
Mm-hmm.
you're with a woman, right? So let's start there.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with anal play if you want to do that if you want your woman to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I think we have to. I think men don't really get to be expressive with themselves, and part of it is society. Part of it is us as women too. Because for the longest time, I've heard women say, "Oh, he wanted me he wanted to do anal sex on me, so that means he must be gay."
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that.
Oh no, I mean, trust me. In the South, it doesn't take much for you to do something to be labeled gay. You can order the wrong cocktail and you're gay. Your jeans too tight, you're gay.
Gay.
You went to this school, you're gay.
Gay.
So it don't take much. It don't take much at all. And let me, like I said, you mentioned your background is public health. I got my master's in public health. My thesis was on heterosexual African American women and HIV rates here in Georgia, and the number one. This was 2010 when I did my thesis, and the number one cause for heterosexual African American women HIV rates was sex with men. Quote unquote heterosexual sex with men who may be down low or whatever the case may be. So for a lot of women, there is this fear of being with a man and he may be down low, and that fear may manifest like if a man says he's into this, does that make him down low? Does that mean that he's secretly into men, or what kind of can a man be heterosexual and still be, like you mentioned, still be into anal play with his woman?
And I can see, being in Atlanta, I can see how people will come to that conclusion. Because you already spoke about Atlanta, about all the men here are gay, or when I moved in here, I made a post on Facebook, and I was like, okay, how's dating in Atlanta? I was making a post, and you got all these
a lot of horror stories.
They gay. I'm like, all of them can't be gay. Like, I know people who live and found husbands. They all can't be gay. Not all of them. But you hear stories about that, about Atlanta. So, I can see how people can have that type of thinking, but it's not all true. It's just rumors. It's not all the truth. You can do anal play with your man or with your woman and not be gay, because there's nerve endings in the anus, so it feels great. So, so.
All right, that's what we're talking about. So, Miss Ashley, before we cut out, I want to give you this opportunity to let people know where they can find your podcast, give them your website, how they can get in contact with you on social media. Let them know.
So you can find me on Instagram at Sex with Ashley, and there is listed everything else, Gospelgasms, Whole and Tell podcast. But if you go to Sex with Ashley on Instagram, you'll find all that. And my website is also sexwithashley.com. So.
All right, Sex with Ashley. Thank you so much. This has been an awesome Corner Confessions. You've been great. Everybody out there, make sure you check out her information is going to be in the description. Give us a like and make sure you subscribe. And with that, we will see y'all later.